Who knows? Someone. There's so much going on. I don't know.
I know. Yeah, it really is.
Hey, just while we are starting off, I've scheduled the third Thursday at noon for the next couple of months for our meetings. Does anybody have a problem with that? So it can be tentative if we need to switch it around, but I just thought if you got your new calendar, you want to put it on there, or it was
Would
part of
that
the,
be, would that be at noon again?
yeah, unless we want to switch it. I'm quite flexible. I can usually make noon work. But if anyone else has a problem or would like to suggest something else, that's fine too. With that,
No,
go ahead.
we've been doing the third Thursday, right? That's not new, right?
Yep, it's not new, but me scheduling in advance is new. So I usually have to go to one of you for a reminder or consult the video. So that's one of the reasons why I'm recording this. If you have a problem with that, let me know as well. I won't do anything about it, but I will take note. No, I can turn off the recording if you want to say something privately.
Hey, I'm a private citizen now. I can say anything I want. Right?
Yeah, I can't believe you're 49 now, John. You look so young.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Leroy. Well, on this day, Beethoven was born, and also the Boston Tea Party. Two memorable events.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I always got a kick out of, in Peanuts, they always made a big deal out of Beethoven's birthday with, I think it was Linus, always kind of.
Yeah. Well, shall we get started? John, thank you for leading this group. I know you're not officially a leader, but unofficially you've kept us on track. So thanks for preparing the agenda. And I guess Rob will probably join us, right? So
I hope so.
we can start or wait a couple more minutes. What's your preference?
I think we should start with the EV assessments, right? Isn't that on the top of your list? And
yeah, we can certainly do that. I talked to Derek today, and there's not a whole lot of plans for, the budget is typically developed at the middle of 2021. And so the next budget won't be developed until middle of next year. And that's when Derek really thinks we'll be able to kind of seriously consult the recommendations and move forward. If there's costs involved for charging stations or vehicles, it wasn't really in time for upcoming purchases in 2022, but he definitely sees it as a priority for 2023. If, however, we can come up with additional funding that is no cost or very appealing, we could probably do something. I really appreciated Roger's thoughtful summary. That was just helped me distill some of the key things. So thank you, Roger, for that. You always have such articulate and thoughtful insights. And your cheerleading for this effort is what's made it possible. So not to mention the fact that you're leading by example. So I'll shut up now.
I think the timing is fine. There are so many electric vehicles going to be coming on the market in 22 to 25 that it's completely reasonable to consider budgeting things in 2022 for 2023, starting, of course, with charging stations, a chicken and egg kind of a thing. But yeah, that's I would have no reservations about waiting a year. There are so many new good vehicles coming online that I think we'll be able to take advantage of that if we have some charging stations, and take advantage of the information in this report. One thing in the report that I didn't realize they were going to work on was the non-road vehicle considerations. And they even threw in some yard tool equipment. There was a weed whip in there and some other things that, you know, use gasoline. That might be a consideration for a low budget, easy thing to get that doesn't require a charging station, because you can just plug those into a wall. So as we move forward with purchasing of yard tools and things that the township uses for basic maintenance, that seems like a reasonable possibility.
Boy, that's a good point.
You know, I'd like to bring, Rob isn't here yet, but you know, the electric bike thing again, I mean, just to note it somehow it's just like a small place saver that at least it was thought about. I know in terms of what the township can do with it, you know, I don't know, you know, some kind of cargo, something or another. I'm sure the Parks Department could make use of something along those lines. The article that Bill McCullum shared with me, and then I shared with John, Leroy, and Roger, it just quickly was from France, with all the leaders showing it by example that they're all using electric bikes. Of course, in Europe, electric bikes are used way more extensively than we are. There's not places to park and the roads are so crowded, you know, certainly more than we have to deal with here in Meridian Township. But we also looked, a few of us looked at a narrative from Boston that looked heavily into electric cars to do the short-term transport from warehouse to homes, of using it instead of cars. And I don't, in our case, we're kind of, we're on the fringe of suburban, I guess, between, you know, something in Lansing that maybe has more public transportation availability to a more suburban area. And I don't know, it seems like we should at least mention it, that we're at least, you know, note that it has some possibilities. I mean, not everyone rides a bike, but not everyone drives a car either, far fewer. You know, there's this a weight limitation and so forth. And one of the articles, it said they did research, and basically the sweet spot is about 12 miles for an electric bike that, you know, that are willing to, people are willing to go. But they did mention in that article a couple of recommendations, like, and I think we sort of talked about this already, like giving new builds or new, you know, requests to the township for building something commercial, giving them a few extra points to have secure bike parking. It could be regular bikes or electric bikes. Maybe even, you know, preferred parking sort of opportunities in areas where, you know, you can get that much closer to the door or whatever. It did say that in the article. So that's another point, is that it's, you know, it's really cheap to use. I mean, in comparison to cars. So it allows maybe families that are stretched or that really need kind of a second vehicle for maybe people that are at home or work from home or just in case kind of things. It allows them the opportunity to expand their possibilities. So, you know, we're talking about electrifying, and it just seems like we should at least mention that. It did say in the article that almost all cities don't mention it at all. You know, don't even think about it. But so, or what it's.
Now, Val, are you kind of, well, a couple of comments. One is, are you kind of referring to the climate action plan, that something should be in there?
Well, that too, but aren't we talking about electrifying transportation within the township, right? Isn't that what we're doing right now here?
No, well, we're specifically talking about the consumer's energy EV assessment for our own fleet.
Right, for our own fleet, right. So is there not a possibility of thinking of some kind of electric
Bikes?
You know, cargo bike or something that would be
Well, that's a good,
in the mix?
I don't know.
Just to set an example?
That's a good question. I did see in the assessment, I think there's 2 motorcycles.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but one thing I wonder about too, Val, is that, my immediate thought, there's a chicken and egg problem with something like electric bikes, right? Because do you start putting a lot of like storage or whatever, how many exist, but of course you don't get a lot exist unless there's certain amenities to kind of support them. Do you have any sense for, like in a township, how many electric bikes we might have now? I'm just kind of curious if it's become, the
I
only
don't
person
know.
I know is you. So,
Well, Roger actually has two. Um,
okay, well, there's
um,
three there. Okay,
Well,
good.
I know from shopping for one a couple of years ago that the bike stores were saying they're increasingly, more and more popular. And during the beginning of COVID, they were extremely difficult to get because everybody was trying to get them to be outside to do recreating. I don't know. I know that they're increasing. I mean, just going into bike stores, it's evident that that's the case.
Hey,
I don't have anything
Hey,
official.
Roger, Val, you've raised the issue of kind of secure parking or whatever, right?
Right.
Roger,
Yeah.
has that ever been an issue for you that you're worried about, security for your electric bikes?
Yes, for sure. We don't take them to stores. We just use them recreationally. If we had secure places to park them, we'd go to the hardware store or a variety of places here locally and park, but they're too valuable. They're unfortunately highly stealable items. And secure parking is a big deal if you're going to use them for anything other than just, a ride around Lake Lansing, which, is fun and great, but we would not use them, for example, to go to Kroger or the hardware store, just because you really can't securely lock a bike. There are too many people out there that are too good at stealing.
Restaurants are another, desirable location to go with a bike.
Oh, good point.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you could figure out a way to get it. There was something, I don't know if I shared it with you, Roger, there was some kind of contraption that you can buy. It's sort of, you drive it's kind of low. It looks like two curbs sort of right next to each other, and drive your bike in between, and it sort of secures it. I can send it afterwards, find the picture. It came from Bill McCullum, tapped in Tim Potter from, he runs the MSU bike.
Yeah.
He does MSU bikes. I don't know what else he does, but he's a pretty avid bike rider, right? I think Leroy knows that. And he referenced this company that makes that product, and I can send it along to you to show it to you. But, maybe we could have somebody like a Tim Potter talk to us sometime at Green Dialogue or whatever. But I guess my main point right now is just to say it in the plan somewhere is like, we thought about it, and it sounds like a great idea. If the pieces ever come together, maybe consider it.
Yeah, well, and I guess, maybe Roy could check on this, is that, does the township use bikes at all? I mean, that would be the first logical, with respect to the township operations, just to see if, there's any interest in electric bike for whatever reason. To think in terms of the township fleet, one thing I'm wondering about, Leroy, is that with respect to the chargers, Consumers Energy has some, I guess, pretty attractive incentives right now. And I'm wondering if the infrastructure dollars, if any of those dollars might be available for a fleet. I think most of them are kind of geared toward, interstates, highways, in rural areas. And so, but it's just something to think about to get us started early with the charging, because we do have infrastructure dollars coming, I guess, next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think I'll be worth checking on it. And I like the idea of including electric bikes in the revised climate action plan as well. We've had a bike lending program for several years at the township. It's been regular bikes. I think the electric bike would be a kind of an attractive gimmicky thing, but There's not a huge demand. We're pretty car centric on most of our fleet. Bikes get maybe a dozen uses a summer or during the spring, summer, fall, but it's really not a super popular item. But that might change. It's just, I don't see a huge demand, but I'm glad you brought it up, Valerie.
Well,
I
just
also
a
have to
couple
mention
final
that I've got to
comments.
leave at 1 o'clock. You guys can continue to meet, but try and keep the meetings to an hour. And let's definitely keep talking about it. Go ahead, Valerie.
Well, if I could just conclude a couple of things, and that is that if you ask the staff if instead of do they use a bike for work, maybe could they use a bike for work? And in terms of township, I was thinking more if it's staff, I mean, it seems like they would be departing a secure environment and then returning to one. So maybe safety isn't as big of an issue as it is for the public using restaurants and so forth. Oh, shoot, and I lost another point I was
Well,
gonna.
one thing related to that is, and I don't know if any of the police in the township use bikes, but in more urban areas, the police sometimes use bikes for patrolling.
Right, yeah.
An electric bike might be a nice middle ground if there's even any interest or use for that. And we're obviously more spread out, so an electric bike for a policeman might not be practical, but I don't know.
It
Just
does
worth
require a whole different way of looking at it. And I think we're so programmed just to look at streets and cars, and that's what they do, that we don't consider that, once I think you start using more bikes, if it's anything like Europe, it creates a whole lot of synergies that go with it, including like more community building, really, because you don't have this huge, dangerous divide between you and, the other side of the street kind of thing. But anyway, okay, enough. Thank you.
I'd like to ask you a question about consumers' energy programs for charging stations. I saw that they had an initiative recently for owners of strip malls and other public areas to get $5,000 to install a charging station. I inquired about that and they said they were totally subscribed, but I wonder if there are other programs that they are going to promote or if there are other funds to do similar subsidies for putting in charging points.
One thing I know though is, in the consumers, this report was done by Consumers Energy, provided, and they did mention their incentives in there. And usually what happens with the utilities, right, is they actually budget money for any sort of incentive program for a certain year, let's say.
Correct.
And so if they don't have anything available, they may have completely committed all the money for this year and might have money for next year or the year after. So it's, and it might even be a different program for fleets as opposed to, you mentioned strip malls, right? See, that wouldn't be
commercial properties where there would be frequent public access. Mm-hmm.
This might be a whole separate program for fleets. Vehicle fleets, yeah. I don't know, yeah.
So the current consumers program, I think, is called My Drive, and Power My Drive. Let's see.
Power My Fleet is another one.
Right.
Yeah, I'm posting Jeff Myram's email. Jeff has been on and off of our committee, and he leads up the program. So he would have the latest pulse of that. David, I don't know if you feel like reaching out to him just for some clarification, but he could probably give us a sense of what's coming up as well as what currently exists.
Yeah, I'd be happy to make an inquiry. I'll email Jeffrey.
I would note that on page 14 of the assessment they sent around, they have a pretty good summary of their of what they currently have for, let's see, it looks like township level, some medium and heavy duty EV programs. And they do talk about it being available in rounds. So we're in round 3 right now. And that implies that there could be additional rounds. Looks like through 2025. So I think that's definitely something worth following up on, consumers, I think, would be really a good potential source of either matching funding or funding for level 2 chargers.
Hey, you know, Leroy, a couple questions about that. This may not have come up with Derek, but one question is, as far as you can tell, is he positive to the idea of over 10 years converting many vehicles? I mean, they identified quite a few vehicles in the assessment. And then the other thing is, I was a little surprised about the fast chargers a couple of fast chargers were in the assessment report, and you know, which are quite expensive. And I just hadn't thought that would be part of it. Did he have any comment about that at all, or?
No, but if we go back to him with some additional questions or observations to share, I mean, I think he really appreciates our assessments and our interests. So I can pose that question.
Yeah, I'm just I'm kind of curious too about the, I don't assume anything, you know, that consumers, right, or their assessment had looked at a 10-year turnover of vehicles and substituted EVs. And of course, I look at that and I think of us revising the climate action plan, thinking, oh boy, that's nice. You know, if we can put into the plan that the plan is basically to convert half the fleet or whatever, I forget what the number is, within the next years, that kind of gives us something to put in the plan that's very specific.
Mhm.
But I would obviously, when we talk about that, it would be nice to know whether Derek is kind of thinking that's a great idea, or maybe so, or whatever.
Sounds good. I can check on that also.
You know,
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just wondering if there's, if we could move on to the climate action plan revision, or do we still have more to talk about the EV assessment?
I think Heidi sent an email to everybody, right?
Oh, I just, had one comment about just that some EV and electric vehicles aren't, they're not that great in ice and snow. So that would be another consideration when choosing vehicles.
You mean they don't handle well?
Yeah, I guess when we were looking at cars, and maybe it's different, maybe, yeah, and some of them don't, because I mean, you have many different climates and many different, places they can be used, but for Michigan, we definitely need to consider ice and snow, right?
Yeah. Now, I was told when I was at the Tesla dealership, because the batteries lower the center of gravity, that for at least the Teslas, they do better.
Oh, it does better. Yeah. I
but-
think, and it's been a while, and like Roger said, lots of new is coming out, but when we were looking, yeah, it was the lighterness of some lightness, and so the lower battery would help. Yeah, but it's just a consideration on choosing.
Anything else about EVs, or should we don't have Rob here yet, so we could move on to the climate action plan, I guess. Unless.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we, Derek also mentioned we need to go out to bid for this next round of PVs. So that's probably obvious, maybe, but yeah, appreciate all the work that Rob's done. And I think he's set up pretty well to put in a nice proposal, but I think one of the next steps is to put together the RFP.
So is Derek kind of thinking what has been suggested so far is a good idea?
I think he likes that, yeah, a lot. I mean, especially when he found out that the library is not, we're not paying the library's electric bill. So, and you know, the fact that the township trustees are so supportive and kind of we're focused towards this goal that we have set up, basically. It just makes more sense to focus on our own facilities first.
Do we, the energy team, do we need to do anything related to this next solicitation, or does anybody have questions, concerns about what direction we're heading, or?
I can see what we can do to get an RFP generated. It's pretty much standard boilerplate stuff. To me, it's kind of daunting to look through our RFPs. But if you think of any ideas, like we had talked about in the past about how do we encourage sort of entrepreneurial or innovative approaches that might reveal some options that we hadn't thought of. So once I get something together, I'll be happy to share it with you guys. And
For this
gals.
particular RFP, the sort of initial question might be, if we're talking about the $100,000 that's available for this coming year, one initial question might be, are we going to make it really specific and focus on the solar panels on the carports and the public safety building? Or would it be more broadly, you know, what can you do for us for $100,000?
Good question. I like the
I'd probably
idea.
recommend I'd recommend to be very specific. You know, we want to put solar panels on the carports at the public safety building. Let's do that.
I think that's a good idea, because you have to, I always kind of try to put myself in the seat of the bidder. And, you know, if it's just open-ended, you don't know exactly how much time and effort you're going to put into this and what they're looking for. If
Right.
it's something very specific or relatively specific, then you kind of go, oh, okay, I can respond to this and make some money on it. And, you know, I'm much, as an installer, I'm much more interested in the more specific solicitation.
Yeah. If you put a certain number of kilowatt hours into or kilowatts into a proposal for solar on the carports, then that's really easy, so to speak.
You know, one thing I was surprised at was the cost per watt.
Yeah,
It's pretty low, you know.
really, it's amazing.
Yeah. You know, if there's somebody out there that could beat Absolute, I would be really surprised. But
Yeah.
who knows?
Does anyone have his number? You can text him, because I know just yesterday he said something about tomorrow's meeting. So I don't know if he just got caught up in something.
He is in a different time zone. That might have something to do with it.
But yeah, he's been making the other meetings.
Yeah, he has been kind of really busy, right? So he probably got waylaid, is what I'm guessing. But you may want to, can you send him a note, Leroy, just to see if he's going to make it? I have to leave at 1 too.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, Leroy's doing that. He just mentioned, you know, the Environmental Commission is looking at their goals for next year. And one of the things that was mentioned, suggested at the last meeting, was to look at reviewing and revising the climate sustainability plan, because next year will be 5 years. And it seems like an appropriate time. And probably enough has happened that it would be a good thing for us to do. And, you know, one of the attachments you got was something that I'm going to propose to the Environmental Commission, which is basically to do it. I think I put down 5 phases. The first phase would be the different, the various committees and the energy would look at different parts of the plan. So I suggested that we look at the energy parts, And then, oh, here we go. And then we also look at the transportation part initially. And so as you can see, the committee review would be phase one. And phase two, when we do our work, and I wouldn't expect we would do much early into 2022 because of the Solarized Meridian program. But then we would ship it to the Environmental Commission for their review and comments, and then ship it out to the staff, the other commissions, get feedback from them and anybody else that people think should be part of that. And then go back to the Environmental Commission. And then hopefully we're at the stage then, and this would be toward the end of probably 2022. Hopefully they review it and ship it on to the township board. So I wanted to ask the energy team two questions. One is, are you interested in taking on that task? And second, does this kind of process make sense to you?
I like the plan. I'd be happy to send along the draft or the original. We can start brainstorming things like electric bikes or other green infrastructure or other things that we want to put in there.
I am not volunteering to run a rewrite, which I think is a worthy exercise because it gives you planning. But a number of the members of our capital area chapter of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light are in Meridian Township. And it would be very useful to give them succinct updates on what's happening. So I would volunteer to be that window so that things like Solarized Meridian or a new energy plan or what's coming up in 2022, I'd very much like to get that information out. Presbyterian Church of Okemos, Hazlitt Community Church, Faith Lutheran, those communities are all interested in these topics.
Well, and now this relates to the Solarized program, but while we're thinking in terms of it basically being a neighborhood by neighborhood program, there's no reason why a faith institution couldn't do a program if they wanted to.
Yeah, Presbyterian Church of Okemos is actively trying to figure out how to do that. And Faith Lutheran also, their green team has been discussing, but they haven't got bids or a contractor. And I think that they would be very low hanging fruit if there is a Solarized Meridian program going on.
Oh, that's promising. Very, very promising.
Those installations would be bigger than the household installations.
Yeah, that's okay.
They should be.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Ann Arbor, it was primarily neighborhood by neighborhood, but I think there were some exceptions to that, and there's no reason why we wouldn't want to. Anybody who would be interested in doing a program, hey, come on and do it. Just to kind of wrap up the climate action plan. So everybody's okay with us taking this on, and okay, Valerie's shaking her head.
I
Right?
think so, for sure. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, Heidi.
We can't see her shaking her head.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other thing is we could do it like, half of the energy team meeting be on topics and half kind of be working, going through the, we did that one time when we were writing it, right? We had kind of a working group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why, anybody on the energy team might say, I'm going to take this piece and do some more research, or maybe two of us will do some more research or meet separately or whatever, and then come back to the whole energy team with, oh, this is what we found out, and this is what we've got some draft language. And I think that can be a good way to do some things, because it could be quite a task. you start thinking about everything that needs to be done. So, okay.
There is the likelihood that there will be at least one working group with the Graham Sustainability Institute at U of M, assisting with a compendium of sustainability plans, developing a compendium of sustainability related plans, as well as looking at implementing climate resilient policies. So in the summer, or maybe towards the end of the summer, there will be some other research that might inform us, but we can include that when it becomes available. Or
So would it be fair to say, though, that, none of the problems or areas have changed? There just might be more solutions, or actions that might be out there that we want to add. And would it be fair to say that there's not big changes unless we found one of our actions is detrimental, right, and not useful, that there wouldn't be so much change in action? So it would be new solutions, or maybe better solutions, trumping, if I can use that word, previous solutions.
I think that's correct. I mean, obviously, what Val's suggesting is kind of a new area with respect to electric bikes. And the
Oh, right.
Environmental Commission has a group now looking at food waste. And so that could be, in a sense, a whole new part of the climate action plan, because I don't think our existing plan says anything about
well,
food
we
waste
have
at all.
recycling
Right.
and waste.
So-
Recycling and waste reduction is a category,
Yeah.
but the large categories wouldn't change. But it seems like the details might continue to evolve.
Yeah, and so I guess what I'm getting at is, you can always rewrite something. I mean, many stories are stories rewritten, right? And so would, as a priority, be the best thing to start with, new solutions, new areas, and prioritize those, and, definitely review the current document, making sure nothing should be removed. But you know what I'm saying, just in terms of prioritizing efforts, prioritizing the new solutions and new areas.
I think that makes sense to me, that, we want to brainstorm maybe what's missing, right? Where are the gaps,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So reviewing it for what's missing, and there's 2 new areas and things like that. Yeah.
Del Val, or Roger, anybody, is there anything that kind of pops into your mind as maybe we missed first time around?
I have a question on that topic. So was there a specific focus on renewable energy impact on low-income individuals and communities? So that's something that should go into a Meridian Township plan for the future. The energy equity, climate justice kind of topics. If you're spending 30% of your income on utilities and things like that, this is where the rubber meets the road. And I think that a component of the plan could specifically address perhaps folks living in subsidized housing or others. That's otherwise, I think we're missing part of the current trends. And it's
So that would
an
be-
important area.
That would be focusing energy efficiency efforts, because they have the most, relative effect when your budget is tight. Focusing energy efficiency efforts there. Yeah.
Yes, certainly there are lots of different aspects to that, but one angle would be, can resources and support be channeled so that it impacts in a meaningful way low-income individuals who are already struggling with. So the line from the utility companies on not supporting distributed solar is that you guys are living off the backs of our poorest consumers, right? You put in your solar panels and then they have to pay the overhead, and that's why we don't want solar panels. It's a game that's been used over and over again, And I think that part of the township's thinking in terms of impact is that this potential hole is something that can be addressed by future plans.
Well,
Oh,
David, I'd just like
go
to
ahead.
point out that the electric bike fits in perfectly in terms of the population you're talking about, providing transportation. Somebody was just saying, oh, not Pat Lindeman, Eric Schertzing presented to the League of Women Voters recently, and his comment was that it's usually transportation costs that throws people into, not being able to make the house payments or the rental payment or whatever, but the extreme cost of having a vehicle to get to work and back. I don't know, that's not a complete solution, but it's something. I mean, maybe there's something that can be done. I mean,
On that line,
$1,000 versus 10,000 or whatever is huge.
when we think of low income elderly who may not have a car anymore, may not
Yeah.
have a driver's license,
Yeah.
the ability to
Yeah.
ride an electric vehicle to the nearest shop or something may be part of that person's mobility issue if they're not going for CATA transportation.
Yeah.
So yes, I do agree that there are ways that could be tied in creatively.
And somebody raised at the recent Green Dialogue that, the whole, a lot of times people working poor or whoever, are obviously buying used vehicles. And the issue came up with electric vehicles, how does the used vehicle market change? Because, maybe by the time the first owner is done with the EV, the batteries have to be replaced, which would be a significant expenditure. So now you got used vehicles that are not that cheap and can't be fixed easily. People used to buy old junkers and kind of tinker with them, and they would, that's what they used to get to work. So there's probably a bunch of these issues that we haven't kind of thought about, and a lot of them, of course, the township might not be able to do anything, but.
One of them is that I'd like to see is the use of telecommuting and Zoom meetings. I mean, talk about transportation costs and time and energy. How do we encourage more of that? Or just kind of reap the benefits or even measure the benefits of how many pounds of CO2 did we save just by zooming into this meeting versus everyone coming to the office here or coffee shop or whatever.
I think that's echoed everywhere, and I wonder if that message is going to legislators to make changes, regarding.
I'm sure it's coming, but anyway, yeah. So next step, kind of like begin to think about some of these gaps, and if you've got particular expertise or resources to, we kept the document fairly small, so even if it's just a paragraph about equity or low-income energy programs or electric bicycles or what have you. In the past, we have focused mostly on township operations. So if we start expanding into sort of a public plan, that does create a slightly different scope.
Township operations provide some leadership examples about where and how you can go. I think that all of the people who've been involved in rethinking how the township operates and views its energy sector are thinking about this one piece of the puzzle. And so if you have something in the document that addresses this energy and climate equity, even if you don't have a specific line item that will spend X amount of dollars, I think that can set the ball rolling. I could talk with my House of Worship partners about what they're thinking and what they're doing and see if they would like to contribute some ideas. So Edgewood Church in East Lansing has a racial justice task force that has been working also on energy related issues. And so they might be helpful in that regard. I can ask.
The master plan is also going to be up for some revisions this coming year. So it might also be good for us to begin thinking about that as we think about long-term plans and visions.
I like the idea of focusing on individual parts of the plan throughout our energy team meetings in the first part of next year. I think it'd be a nice organizing principle around our meetings to look at the plan from each of the categories and come with some good ideas for things that we might want to revise.
Sounds good.
Are there any updates on Solarized Meridian? Think thoughts or planning?
Well, we were hoping to have a discussion with Rob today about his proposal for the price schedule. But he's, and I think, torn away from something. But I've got well, I actually got a quick question first related to Solarize. One is, I've been kind of assuming, you know, assuming is always dangerous, that the Solarize Meridian, let's call it 2020 program, or 2022 program, that's what Rob called it, you know, is actually sponsored by the Meridian Energy Team and GLREA. GLREA would like to get our foot in there. And actually, I think we did that with the first program. Really, it was sponsored by the Meridian Energy Team. And just so again, I don't like to assume anything. Does that sound okay to folks? Hearing no objections. And then I guess Rob's not here, but you know, that doesn't mean we can't discuss his proposal in the next 5-10 minutes. And what is people's initial, did everybody get a chance to look at what Rob proposed?
I noticed that David was not on Rob's distribution list, so I just sent it to you, David.
Did you put it up on the screen, Leroy?
Thank you, Leroy.
I think so.
Oh, that's fine. We need Rob's part of his, maybe we can't get Rob's part of his email.
Can you see that?
Yeah, but that's not what I was thinking of, though. I was thinking of Rob's proposal
Oh, for the,
for the pricing.
okay, let's see here.
Well,
Yeah,
Leroy's
it might
doing
take a
it.
minute.
Yeah, what did anybody have any initial reactions? Well, let me make a couple of comments. It's different than Ann Arbor because for in a couple ways. One is, you know, his discount percentages are 5 to 9 get 5%, 10 to 15 get 10%. In Ann Arbor, it would have been like 15%, and above 15 get 15%. So I think it's good. He still has the three levels, 5, 10, and 15%. Here we go. Yeah. Now Ann Arbor had a little different scheme with the because Ann Arbor had, I think, up to 3-5%, 3 to 7, 10%. You know, over 10, 15%. And then of course, Rob came up with this watts, dollars per watt for different size systems, which wasn't. Now the Ann Arbor system, of course, was different in the sense that, you know, so many of us are going to be using Absolute for our first workshops. And so this is relevant, I guess. But in Ann Arbor, I think there was a number of different installers that came in and had a certain price. And then that was the basis for them to decide the starting point for the discussion of pricing. So I don't know what people think. Any thoughts about the, of course, then we got all this other stuff too, which I think certainly would never be, I wouldn't want to cover this in a workshop because people would, you know, it's good to have this laid out, but certainly I wouldn't try to cover it in a workshop. Focus on in a workshop, and that's more complicated than the Ann Arbor scheme, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So, what? Any thoughts?
Well, I have, I'm under contract, I guess. I have my deposit in with Absolute. And I don't know when they're gonna start. I think, I'm not certain what works best with Solarize, and I don't know that Rob knows either, or is probably thinking about it. But when it does start, when Solarize does start, I mean, I thought I heard you say at the last meeting, John, that interested parties would also be getting their own, exploring other quotes as well, or how does that work?
Oh, well, what Ann Arbor did, that's a good question. What Ann Arbor did, just to kind of be above board, is that, okay, we got this group buy program that your neighbor has organized. Your neighbor hired Homeland Solar, in Ann Arbor. And so if you want to buy into Homeland Solar's deal, okay, now you might wonder if it's a deal. So, if you want to get some other proposals, go ahead, go for it. And, if you think there's a better proposal, select that other contractor. It was kind of an opportunity to basically get a second opinion.
Yeah.
And so that was it's a free country. So obviously the same thing holds true here. Somebody comes to my backyard and we have a discussion and they go, I'm not so sure about that deal. So, hey, here's a list of installers to see if you can get a better deal.
Okay.
All
right. So basically you've just gone through the trouble of sort of pre-packaging a portion of it and saying, here, you can apply this to your situation, or you can shop around a little and choose something else, or shop around and come back to us, or go the other direction, or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
free country, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that happens, Ann Arbor's experience has a lot of, they had, I don't know, 40, 50 people at the meetings, and then, half of them got assessments, and then they almost always got up to the 15%. But in their scheme, though, all you needed was 10 or more people to get to 15%. Now, of course, their starting point for pricing could have been much higher than what Rob's proposing too, because what's a percentage, right? The starting point's real important. So whether this is a good or a better deal or not, who knows? I think from Rob's perspective, this is what makes sense to him. And it does have the advantage that if you don't get any discounts, but end up going with the solar installer, you are getting a lower price the bigger the system, which is, I'm sure, the way they price things anyway. I mean, when they go out and do pricing, I assume this is one kind of approach they use, economies of scale. It does make
if I were doing a workshop, I think I would find it kind of complicated to explain the idea of a different amount per watt, depending on the size of the system, because very few people have any concept of what a watt is, let alone how many watts they're going to be able to put on their house. So that's, folks might be confused about that. If I can just imagine the difficulty of trying to explain that. And this is really not that much variance from 290 to 310 when you come right down to it. And I wonder if it might be best in our program to just say $3 a watt is the starting amount, and then you have a discount schedule from that. And sure, if somebody has a really, really large system, then when they get an actual estimate from an installer, there could be some discounts based on some economy of scale. And conversely, if somebody had just one panel for charging a lawnmower, actually the installer probably wouldn't even want to do that. But that would be, I suppose, different. But I can just imagine myself trying to explain the the challenges of trying to explain how many watts occupies a certain amount of roof space and how much space a person might have. And it could be confusing to somebody. I really like the first part where it's just a flat percent reduction based on the number of installations that come out of any particular meeting. So I think that would be that's really useful.
Heidi, Valerie,
I mean,
Leroy, what do you
well-
think?
Well, the success of the program will really depend on this price sheet then, right? On the whole solarized meridian? I mean, because that's what we'll all be using to start off with. When we
Well,
organize our groups.
Those of us who are
Well-
using absolute,
Oh, okay. Others are using others? I mean, other hosts they're doing
It's-
whatever they,
it's a
Okay.
free country.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna solicit hosts, and you know, the whole program is basically solicit 3 bids and you know, select a contractor and then see if you can arrange a discount program. So they might, Susie, whoever might pick somebody else who has a different starting point and kind of has now you know, because I think this is something, this is just the way Ann Arbor did it. Okay, if we set up a program by which basically it's always absolute, okay, there's some kind of competitive issues with that, right? Like, okay, how were they selected?
yeah.
Why can't you do it with somebody else? Ann Arbor did it with anybody a homeowner wanted. So, you know, it seems fairer and safer to me to not stipulate that. Now, a lot of people might pick absolute because absolute's probably got the best deal. Is what I'm guessing, but
Is it premature to
it-
ask other contractors what their discount schedule might be given various scenarios, or?
When I went through the bid process, that few of them already offered it up. But, you know,
Yeah,
so I think I might be able to go back through my notes and share what they said.
that would be helpful.
Okay.
All right. Should we continue any remaining conversation offline, or I do have to run. John's got to run. Is there any parting words of wisdom?
Merry Christmas.
It's been fun. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Yeah, all
Right.
right.
I'll see you out on the trails, everybody. Enjoy the
All right.
weather.
Yep.
Take care.
Thank you.